September 3rd, 2025. 10 a.m. Beijing time. Red flags snap in the morning wind across Tiananmen Square. Cameras from every corner of the globe focus on a reviewing stand where three men stand together for the first time in history. Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, Kim Jong Un. What happened next wasn't just a military parade. It was a declaration, a warning, a demonstration of power that forced Pentagon strategists to tear up every playbook they had. For 80 minutes, the world watched as China unveiled weapon systems that military analysts are still trying to understand. Missiles capable of striking anywhere on Earth. Hypersonic glide vehicles that can slip past any defense. Submarine-launched nuclear weapons that can emerge from the depths of the Pacific without warning. But the hardware wasn't the most terrifying part. It was the symbolism. Three autocrats, representing three of the world's most heavily sanctioned nations, standing shoulder to shoulder in Beijing's heart, smiling, applauding, showing the world that the old order is cracking. President Trump's reaction came swift and sharp. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong Un as you conspire against the United States of America. The gauntlet had been thrown. The question now, what comes next? If you want to understand the military technologies and geopolitical shifts that mainstream media won't explain, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. We're diving deep into the weapons, strategies, and power plays reshaping our world. The 2025 China Victory Day Parade was supposed to commemorate the 80th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. What it actually became was something far more significant: the public debut of a new axis of power. For months, Western intelligence had tracked unusual diplomatic activity. Putin's extended stay in Beijing before the parade. Kim Jong Un's rare departure from North Korea, arriving on his famous armored train with his daughter in tow, a signal many analysts interpreted as grooming his heir for the international stage. But nothing prepared observers for the visual impact of seeing all three leaders together on the gate of heavenly peace, flanked by 26 other world leaders who had accepted Xi's invitation to witness what China called its new era of military modernization. The absence was as telling as the presence. No Western leaders attended. The United States had no official representatives. NATO allies stayed away. Even India's Modi, despite attending a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit in nearby Tianjin just days before, conspicuously skipped the parade after apparent pressure from Japan and the United States. This left the stage clear for what foreign policy analysts quickly dubbed the axis of upheaval. Nations united not by shared ideology, but by shared opposition to the American-led world order that has dominated global politics since 1945. The choreography was deliberate. Xi stood at the center, the host and rising power. Putin flanked him on one side, the experienced challenger, who had already launched Europe's largest war since World War II. Kim Jong Un stood on the other, the wild card with nuclear weapons and nothing left to lose. Their body language told a story of coordination. Synchronized smiles as formations of troops marched past. Coordinated applause when the most advanced weapon systems rolled through the square. At one point, cameras caught Putin leaning over to explain something to Kim, who nodded thoughtfully. A moment that sent intelligence agencies scrambling to interpret the exchange. The timing couldn't have been more provocative. Just weeks earlier, North Korean troops had been confirmed fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine. China's neutral stance on the war had become increasingly hollow as Beijing provided dual-use technologies and continued purchasing Russian energy, providing Moscow with economic lifelines despite Western sanctions. Now, the pretense was dropping. This wasn't about commemorating history. This was about reshaping the future. As the parade began, state media cameras captured the moment that defined the event. Xi, Putin, and Kim, standing together as China's most advanced military hardware, thundered past below them. The symbolism was unmistakable. Three nuclear powers. Three nations under heavy Western sanctions. Three leaders who had made clear their intention to challenge American global dominance. The message to Washington was clear. You're no longer dealing with isolated adversaries. You're facing a bloc. What rolled through Tiananmen Square that morning represented more than military hardware. It was a catalog of capabilities designed to neutralize American military advantages that have underpinned global stability for decades. The star of the show was the DF-5C intercontinental ballistic missile. These massive weapons, transported on vehicles so large they looked like mobile buildings, represent the backbone of China's strategic nuclear deterrent. With a range exceeding 12,000 kilometers and the ability to carry multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicles, each DF-5C can deliver up to 10 nuclear warheads to separate targets across the continental United States. Western observers had seen earlier versions of the DF-5 series before, but the DF-5C variant displayed new modifications that suggested significant improvements in accuracy, survivability, and penetration capabilities. The missile's sheer size dwarfed the crowds lining Chang'an Avenue, a visual reminder of China's ability to project destructive power across any distance. But the DF-5C wasn't alone. Following close behind came the DF-61, a weapon system that had intelligence analysts scrambling through classified databases. Described by Chinese state media only as a next-generation deterrent, the DF-61 appears to be equipped with hypersonic glide vehicles capable of maneuvering around missile defense systems at speeds exceeding Mach 5. Hypersonic weapons represent a revolution in strategic warfare. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow predictable parabolic trajectories, hypersonic glide vehicles can change course during flight, making interception nearly impossible with current defense technologies. If the DF-61 performs as advertised, it could render America's multi-billion-dollar missile defense investments obsolete overnight. Then came the naval component, JL-3 submarine-launched ballistic missiles. These weapons, mounted on display trailers to show their scale, represent China's completion of a nuclear triad comparable to those maintained by the United States and Russia. Submarine-launched missiles are the most survivable component of any nuclear deterrent, capable of remaining hidden in ocean depths until commanded to strike. The JL-3's estimated range of over 10,000 kilometers means Chinese submarines operating from heavily defended bastions in the South China Sea could strike targets across the American mainland. More ominously, the missiles could be launched from submarines operating much closer to U.S. shores, dramatically reducing warning times and complicating defensive responses. The parade also featured upgraded versions of the DF-31 mobile intercontinental missiles. Road mobile systems like the DF-31 represent the holy grail of nuclear deterrence. Weapons that can be dispersed across vast territories, hidden from satellite surveillance, and launched from unpredictable locations. Even if an adversary successfully targets fixed silos and submarine bases, mobile missiles can survive to deliver devastating retaliation. Beyond the nuclear systems, the parade showcased China's conventional precision strike capabilities. Hypersonic cruise missiles, advanced anti-ship weapons, and electronic warfare systems designed to blind and confuse American satellites and communication networks all rolled past the reviewing stand. Perhaps most concerning were the weapons not fully revealed. Several platforms remained covered by tarps even during the parade, their shapes suggesting new categories of weapons that Western intelligence is still working to understand. Chinese officials hinted at directed energy weapons and next-generation electronic warfare systems, without providing details. The technological message was clear. China is no longer playing catch-up with American military capabilities. In several critical areas, particularly hypersonic weapons and anti-ship missiles, China may already hold advantages that could prove decisive in any future conflict. But technology alone doesn't win wars. The parade's true significance lay in who was watching these weapons roll past, and what their presence together signaled about coordinated resistance to American global dominance. By any conventional analysis, the partnership between China, Russia, and North Korea should be impossible. Their ideologies differ. Their economic systems operate on different principles. Their strategic interests often conflict. And yet, there they stood together in Beijing, united by something more powerful than shared values, shared opposition to American hegemony. Putin's presence at the parade carried particular weight. The Russian leader arrived in Beijing fresh from overseeing his country's grinding war in Ukraine, a conflict that has consumed hundreds of thousands of lives and billions of dollars in military equipment. His decision to attend China's military parade, rather than focusing on the war effort, sent a clear signal about priorities and partnerships. The symbolism deepened when cameras captured Putin and Kim Jong Un, traveling together in the same vehicle after the parade, heading to private talks that U.S. intelligence agencies are undoubtedly desperate to penetrate. These weren't casual diplomatic conversations. They were strategy sessions between leaders of nuclear powers who have made clear their intention to challenge the existing world order. Kim Jong Un's presence was perhaps the most significant diplomatic development. The North Korean leader rarely leaves his isolated kingdom, and never for purely ceremonial events. His decision to attend the Beijing parade, bringing his daughter Kim Jong-un in what many interpret as succession planning, demonstrated the strategic importance Pyongyang places on the trilateral relationship. Recent intelligence reports have confirmed that North Korean troops are fighting alongside Russian forces in Ukraine, providing Moscow with additional manpower in exchange for advanced military technologies and economic support. This military cooperation represents a dangerous evolution in the relationship, from diplomatic partnership to active military alliance. China's role as the senior partner in this arrangement is clear but carefully calibrated. Beijing maintains official neutrality on Ukraine, while providing Russia with economic lifelines through continued energy purchases and dual-use technology exports. This approach allows China to support Russian resistance to NATO expansion without triggering direct confrontation with the United States. The economic dimensions of this partnership are as important as the military ones. China provides both Russia and North Korea with access to global markets despite Western sanctions. Chinese banks process transactions that would be impossible through Western financial systems. Chinese companies provide technologies and components that keep sanctioned economies functioning. In return, China gains access to Russian energy resources at discounted prices and North Korean rare earth minerals critical for advanced electronics manufacturing. More importantly, China gains strategic partners willing to tie down American military resources in Europe and Northeast Asia, while Beijing focuses on its primary objective, asserting control over the South China Sea and ultimately Taiwan. The trilateral meeting in Beijing formalized what had been developing through years of incremental cooperation. Intelligence sources suggest the three leaders discussed coordination mechanisms for future crises, burden-sharing arrangements for challenging American interests, and possible joint responses to increased Western pressure. For American strategists, this represents a nightmare scenario. Coordinated challenges on multiple fronts from adversaries who have learned to support each other's objectives. While the United States maintains superior overall military capabilities, the prospect of simultaneous crises in Europe, Northeast Asia, and the Taiwan Strait would strain American resources beyond comfortable limits. Trump's angry response reflected this reality. His social media posts about conspiracies against America weren't hyperbole. They were recognition that the strategic environment had fundamentally shifted. While the pageantry and symbolism of the Beijing parade captured headlines, the real story lay in the military technologies on display and what they mean for the future of warfare. The hypersonic weapons showcased during the parade represent a fundamental shift in the strategic balance. For decades, the United States has relied on early warning systems and missile defenses to provide time and options during nuclear crises. Hypersonic glide vehicles compress decision timelines to minutes and render traditional defenses useless. The DF-61 missiles displayed in Beijing can potentially reach any target in the continental United States within 30 minutes of launch, following unpredictable flight paths that current missile defense systems cannot track or intercept. This capability doesn't just threaten American military installations, it threatens the decision-making process itself by eliminating the time needed for deliberation and consultation. American missile defense systems, anchored by the ground-based mid-course defense installations in Alaska and California, were designed to counter limited attacks from rogue states like North Korea or Iran. They were never intended to handle saturated attacks from major powers employing advanced countermeasures and multiple delivery systems. The combination of systems displayed in Beijing, road-mobile missiles, submarine-launched weapons, and hypersonic glide vehicles, presents exactly the kind of complex, multi-vector threat that overwhelms defensive systems through sheer numbers and diversity. Beyond nuclear delivery systems, The parade showcased China's growing capabilities in electronic warfare and cyber operations. Advanced jamming systems can blind American satellites and disrupt communication networks that coordinate military operations across the Pacific. Cyber warfare capabilities, while not physically displayed, represent perhaps the most immediate threat to American military operations. The integration of these capabilities creates what military analysts call anti-access/area denial environments, zones where American military forces cannot operate safely. China's goal is to push American military presence beyond the first island chain, creating space for Chinese operations against Taiwan and intimidation of regional allies. But the technology displayed in Beijing isn't just about military capabilities. It's about industrial capacity. The weapons rolling through Tiananmen Square represented domestic Chinese production, not imported systems. This demonstrates China's success in building defense industries capable of mass production during extended conflicts. American defense production, by contrast, has been optimized for efficiency and cost reduction rather than surge capacity. Recent experience providing weapons to Ukraine has highlighted shortfalls in American industrial capacity to sustain high-intensity conflicts over extended periods. The implications extend beyond bilateral US-China competition. Regional allies watching the Beijing parade must recalculate their security arrangements and defense investments. Japan is already accelerating plans for indigenous missile production and discussing options for acquiring strike capabilities that could reach China. South Korea is reconsidering its nuclear abstinence. Australia is fast-tracking hypersonic weapon development. These regional arms races create additional complexity for American strategic planning. Even allies committed to resisting Chinese expansion may develop independent capabilities that complicate alliance coordination and burden-sharing arrangements. The parade also highlighted timing advantages that favor China and its partners. While American defense programs often require decades from concept to deployment, China demonstrated ability to rapidly field new weapon systems and integrate them into operational forces. This development speed advantage, combined with China's growing industrial capacity and partnership with Russian military technology, creates a window of opportunity that Chinese strategists are clearly prepared to exploit. If you're still following this breakdown, smash that like button and let us know in the comments. Do you think these weapons are for deterrence or preparation for offensive action? And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into military technology that shapes our world. The sight of Xi, Putin, and Kim standing together in Beijing triggered immediate recalculations across the American national security establishment. Within hours of the parade's conclusion, secure video conferences were connecting Pentagon officials, State Department analysts, and White House staff in urgent strategy sessions. Trump's public response, delivered via Truth Social posts, mixed personal pique with strategic assessment. His comment about giving warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong Un as you conspire against the United States of America reflected genuine anger at seeing two leaders he had cultivated personal relationships with publicly aligning against American interests. But behind the personal frustration lay serious strategic concerns. American military planners had long worried about the prospect of coordinated challenges from multiple adversaries. The Beijing parade made clear that this scenario was no longer hypothetical. It was unfolding in real time. The immediate military implications were sobering. American forces are globally distributed, but concentrated in key regions. Europe for NATO defense, the Western Pacific for alliance commitments to Japan and South Korea, and the Middle East for counterterrorism and regional stability operations. This global presence provides strategic flexibility, but creates vulnerabilities if adversaries coordinate timing and geography of challenges. A crisis involving Taiwan, Ukraine, and the Korean Peninsula simultaneously would test American capabilities beyond comfortable margins. While the United States maintains superior overall military strength, the logistics of projecting power across multiple theaters while maintaining adequate reserves requires careful orchestration and allied support. The weapons displayed in Beijing complicated these calculations further. Hypersonic missiles and advanced anti-ship weapons threaten the forward bases and naval assets that enable American power projection. if Chinese forces can effectively target U.S. bases in Japan, South Korea, and Guam, while simultaneously threatening naval task forces with hypersonic anti-ship missiles, American operational flexibility diminishes rapidly. Pentagon responses began within days of the parade. Accelerated funding for hypersonic weapon development, previously delayed by budget constraints and technical challenges, suddenly became top priority. Plans for additional missile defense installations moved from consideration to active development. Most significantly, discussions began about fundamental changes to American force posture in the Pacific. The traditional American approach of maintaining large visible bases near potential conflict zones may no longer be sustainable against adversaries with precision long-range strike capabilities. New concepts emphasizing distributed operations, mobile basing, and rapid deployment from secure rear areas gained traction among military planners. Alliance relationships required immediate attention as well. The spectacle of three nuclear-armed adversaries coordinating opposition to American leadership sent shockwaves through Allied capitals. Emergency consultations with NATO partners, Pacific allies, and regional security partners became priority items on diplomatic calendars. Some allies responded with increased defense commitments and closer security cooperation. Others began hedging their bets, exploring independent capabilities and diplomatic flexibility that could provide options if American security guarantees prove insufficient. The economic dimensions of the challenge proved equally complex. Sanctions against Russia and North Korea had clearly failed to prevent their military cooperation with China. New approaches to economic statecraft, potentially including secondary sanctions on Chinese entities supporting sanctioned partners, required careful calibration to avoid escalating conflicts while still imposing meaningful costs. Congressional responses were swift and bipartisan. Defense appropriation bills suddenly included substantial increases for hypersonic weapons, missile defense, and alliance support programs. Intelligence agencies received additional resources for monitoring the trilateral partnership and assessing its evolving capabilities and intentions. But the most significant American response may be the least visible: fundamental reassessment of strategic assumptions that have guided American policy for decades. The post-Cold War period of unchallenged American dominance is clearly ending. The question now is whether American leadership can adapt to a multipolar world while preserving core interests and alliance relationships. The Beijing parade of September 3, 2025, marked more than a ceremonial milestone. It announced the emergence of a new phase in international relations, where American dominance faces coordinated challenge from multiple nuclear-armed adversaries. The implications ripple far beyond military calculations. Global economic systems built around American financial networks and allied trade relationships face pressure from alternative arrangements centered on China's Belt and Road Initiative, Russian energy exports, and North Korean mineral resources. Regional security arrangements throughout Asia require fundamental reconsideration. The parade demonstrated that China can provide security guarantees and economic incentives to partners willing to distance themselves from American-led alliance systems. Countries throughout Southeast Asia, Central Asia, and even traditional American partners in the Middle East must now weigh the benefits of continued alignment with Washington against potential advantages of accommodation with Beijing. The technological dimensions of the challenge extend beyond military systems. The weapons displayed in Beijing reflected broader Chinese advances in artificial intelligence, quantum computing, advanced materials, and manufacturing capacity. These dual-use technologies provide civilian economic benefits while enhancing military capabilities in ways that blur traditional distinctions between defense and commercial competition. American technological advantages, once taken for granted, now face systematic challenge from adversaries with substantial resources, state-directed development programs, and willingness to accept risks that democratic societies find difficult to match. The result is a technology competition that parallels the Cold War space race, but encompasses virtually every aspect of advanced technology development. The timeline for these challenges remains unclear, but the trajectory is evident. Chinese military modernization programs target 2027 for achieving basic military modernization and 2049 for building world-class military capabilities, comparable to those of the United States. These timelines suggest that the next decade will be critical for determining whether American leadership can adapt to new realities or will face inevitable decline. Regional hotspots provide potential flashpoints for testing the new balance of power. Taiwan remains the most likely scenario for direct US-China military confrontation, with Chinese capabilities and intentions increasingly focused on resolving the island's status through force if necessary. The parade's weapon systems were clearly designed with Taiwan scenarios in mind. Ukraine continues to drain Russian resources while providing valuable combat experience and testing ground for new military technologies. The integration of North Korean forces into this conflict creates precedents for trilateral military cooperation that could apply to future crises. The Korean Peninsula offers another potential testing ground, with North Korea's growing nuclear capabilities backed by Chinese economic support and Russian military technology, creating new options for challenging American presence and alliance relationships in Northeast Asia. Middle Eastern dynamics add additional complexity, with Iran's growing partnership with China and Russia creating potential for coordinated challenges to American interests across multiple regions simultaneously. The economic warfare dimensions of this competition may prove as important as military capabilities. Chinese economic statecraft, Russian energy leverage, and North Korean cyber capabilities combine to create tools for pressuring American interests without triggering direct military responses. For American policymakers, the challenge is developing strategies that can address coordinated opposition across multiple domains: military, economic, technological, and diplomatic, while maintaining alliance relationships and avoiding escalation to catastrophic conflict. The Beijing parade offered a preview of this new world order. Whether American leadership can successfully navigate these challenges while preserving democratic values and alliance relationships remains an open question. But one conclusion seems inescapable. The era of unchallenged American dominance has ended. What comes next depends on choices being made in Washington, Beijing, Moscow, and Pyongyang. Choices that will shape international relations for generations to come. The answers to these questions will shape the next chapter of international relations. What seems certain is that September 3, 2025, marked the end of the post-Cold War era and the beginning of a new period of great power competition, with stakes that extend far beyond traditional military concerns. As the last missile carriers disappeared from Tiananmen Square and foreign dignitaries departed Beijing, the world had witnessed something unprecedented: the public emergence of a coordinated challenge to American global leadership by three nuclear-armed powers acting in unprecedented coordination. The weapons displayed that day represent more than military hardware. They embody a new strategic reality where American military advantages face systematic challenge from adversaries with substantial resources, advanced technologies, and coordinated strategies. The presence of Xi, Putin, and Kim together on the reviewing stand symbolize the emergence of an axis of upheaval, united not by ideology, but by shared opposition to American-led international order. This partnership creates new vulnerabilities for American strategy, while providing each partner with enhanced options for challenging Western interests. For viewers watching from around the world, the parade raised fundamental questions about the future of international stability. Will this new alignment lead to increased cooperation among authoritarian powers that challenges democratic governance globally? Can American leadership adapt to multipolar competition while preserving alliance relationships and democratic values? The answers to these questions will shape the next chapter of international relations. What seems certain is that September 3, 2025, marked the end of the post-Cold War era and the beginning of a new period of great power competition, with stakes that extend far beyond traditional military concerns. What's your take on this new axis of power? Do you think this alliance between China, Russia, and North Korea represents a genuine threat to global stability, or just theatrical posturing? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to Navy Warfare for more analysis of the military technologies and geopolitical shifts reshaping our world. Hit that notification bell so you never miss our deep dives into the strategies and weapon systems that define modern warfare. The parade is over, but the implications are just beginning.